There was once a king who believed he had reached the highest point a human being could ever reach. He ruled a vast empire. He commanded armies. He walked through a city of breathtaking wealth and power, knowing that thousands of people lived under his authority. And one day, as he stood above his magnificent kingdom, he looked across Babylon and made a declaration that would change his life forever. "Is this not the great Babylon that I have built?" But while the king was celebrating his greatness, heaven was already preparing his downfall. Because 12 months earlier, he had received a warning, a terrifying dream, a gigantic tree reaching toward heaven, a mysterious heavenly messenger, and a command that made no sense: cut down the tree. But the strangest part of the dream wasn't the tree. It was what happened to the man represented by it. He would lose his kingdom. He would be driven away from human society, and for a terrifying period of time, the most powerful king in Babylon would live like a wild creature. His crown would be gone. His throne would be empty. His mind would disappear. And the man who once commanded an empire would find himself looking up at the heavens, trying to understand what had happened to him. But why would God bring such a powerful king so low? Why was Nebuchadnezzar warned before the judgment came? And what happened when the king finally understood the lesson heaven had been trying to teach him? One night, Nebuchadnezzar went to sleep. But what began as an ordinary night became one of the most disturbing experiences of his life. In his dream, he saw a tree, not an ordinary tree. This tree stood in the middle of the earth. It grew enormous. Its height reached toward heaven. Its leaves were beautiful. Its fruit was abundant. Animals found shelter beneath it. Birds lived among its branches. And everything around it seemed to depend upon it. The tree had become a source of life. But then the atmosphere changed. The dream became silent, and a heavenly messenger appeared. The command was terrifying. Cut down the tree. The tree was cut down. Its branches disappeared. Its leaves were stripped away. Its fruit was scattered. The animals that had depended upon it fled. But the stump was not completely destroyed. Its roots remained in the earth. Then the message became even more disturbing. The dream was no longer speaking about a tree. It was speaking about a man. A man's mind would be changed. He would no longer live like an ordinary human being. He would live among the animals. He would remain in that condition until he recognized a truth that Nebuchadnezzar had forgotten. The Most High rules over the kingdoms of men. And then Nebuchadnezzar woke up. The king was terrified.
I have had a dream that troubles me. Tell me, what does it mean?
Nebuchadnezzar immediately summoned the wise men of Babylon, magicians, astrologers, advisors, men who claimed to understand mysteries. The king told them what he had seen, but one by one, they failed. Nobody could give the king the answer he wanted. Then another name was mentioned, Daniel. Nebuchadnezzar knew Daniel. Daniel had already demonstrated an extraordinary ability to understand mysteries. So Daniel was brought before the king.
Daniel, I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and no mystery is too difficult for you.
Then the king described the dream. Daniel listened, but something changed on his face. He became troubled. The king noticed.
Do not let the dream or its interpretation trouble you.
But Daniel was troubled, not because he didn't understand the dream, because he understood it perfectly, and he knew what it meant for the man standing before him. Daniel finally spoke. "My lord, if only the dream applied to your enemies and its meaning to your adversaries." Nebuchadnezzar was about to discover that the tree wasn't about Babylon. It was about him. Daniel explained the dream. The enormous tree represented Nebuchadnezzar himself. The king had become great. His authority had spread. His power had become known throughout the land. But the tree was going to be cut down, and that meant judgment. Nebuchadnezzar would be driven away from people. He would live among the animals. He would eat grass like cattle. He would remain in that condition until he acknowledged the authority of the Most High. Imagine hearing those words as a king. Imagine sitting on a throne while a prophet tells you that your throne will soon be empty. Daniel wasn't finished. He gave Nebuchadnezzar a warning. "Therefore, O king, be pleased to accept my advice. Renounce your sins by doing what is right, and your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed." The future wasn't necessarily fixed. Nebuchadnezzar had been warned. He had been given an opportunity. He could humble himself. He could change. He could acknowledge God before the judgment arrived. And for a while, it appeared that nothing happened. 1 month passed, then another, then another. The palace remained standing. The kingdom continued. Nebuchadnezzar remained king. The warning seemed distant. Perhaps the dream had simply been a terrifying vision. Perhaps the judgment wasn't coming. Perhaps the king had nothing to fear. But heaven had not forgotten. 12 months passed, and then Nebuchadnezzar walked onto the roof of his royal palace. Below him was Babylon, the city he had built, the empire he ruled, the monuments that displayed his greatness. He looked across the city, and pride returned. Nebuchadnezzar declares, "Is this not the great Babylon I have built as the royal residence, by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" Notice the words, "My power, my majesty, I built." Nebuchadnezzar had received the warning, but he had not truly learned the lesson. And then, heaven answered. The words were barely out of the king's mouth when a voice came from heaven. "King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken. The kingdom has departed from you." The judgment had arrived. The king who believed he controlled everything was about to discover how little control he actually had. His kingdom was taken from him. He was driven away from human society, and the prophecy Daniel had spoken 12 months earlier began unfolding. The great king of Babylon was no longer living like a king. He was living among the animals, eating grass like cattle, exposed beneath the heavens. The crown was gone. The throne was gone. The palace was gone. And the identity Nebuchadnezzar had built around his power was stripped away. Think about the contrast. Yesterday, Nebuchadnezzar had servants. Now he had none. Yesterday, he sat upon a throne. Now he wandered through the wilderness. Yesterday, people bowed before him. Now animals moved around him. The man who believed himself to be above everyone had been brought down to the level of the beasts. But there was a deeper lesson taking place. God wasn't simply humiliating Nebuchadnezzar for the sake of humiliation. The judgment had a purpose. Nebuchadnezzar had forgotten who truly held authority, so everything he trusted in was temporarily removed. His palace couldn't help him. His soldiers couldn't help him. His wealth couldn't help him. His crown couldn't help him. His empire couldn't help him. And eventually, the king had nothing left except himself, and the God he had refused to acknowledge. The Bible then gives us the turning point. After the appointed period had passed, Nebuchadnezzar looked toward heaven, and that moment changed everything. Not when he looked toward Babylon, not when he looked toward his throne, not when he looked toward his wealth. He looked toward heaven, and his understanding returned. The king finally recognized the truth. The Most High is sovereign. Human kingdoms rise, human kingdoms fall. Kings receive authority and kings lose authority. But God's kingdom remains. Nebuchadnezzar had spent his life looking down from his throne. Now he finally looked up. And when he did, his mind returned. His perspective returned. His life began to return. Nebuchadnezzar's understanding returned. And with it came restoration. His advisors and nobles came to him. His kingdom was restored. His authority returned. But Nebuchadnezzar was no longer the same man. He had experienced something no palace could teach him, no army could teach him, no wealth could teach him. He had learned humility.
I praise the King of Heaven.
The throne was still there. The empire was still there. The crown could be placed upon his head again. But now the king understood something he had once ignored. His power was not ultimate. Nebuchadnezzar's story is not simply the story of a king who became like an animal. It is the story of pride, a warning, a fall, and restoration. He thought Babylon proved how great he was, but God showed him that even the greatest king on earth remains under heaven's authority. Nebuchadnezzar lost his mind, but he found humility. He lost his throne, but he found perspective. He lost everything he thought made him powerful and discovered the one who was truly in control. And perhaps that is why his story has survived for thousands of years, because pride still whispers the same words. Look what I have built. Look how powerful I am. Look how far I have risen. But Nebuchadnezzar's life reminds us of another question. Who gave you the strength to build it? Who gave you the opportunity? Who gave you the breath to stand where you are standing? The king once looked across Babylon and said, I built this. Then heaven humbled him. And when he finally looked toward heaven, he understood. The greatest lesson of Nebuchadnezzar's story may not be that a king became like an animal. It may be that the king finally discovered he was never the highest authority. Nebuchadnezzar looked down from the greatest throne on earth until God taught him to look up.